Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So today we're going to continue the series, the Unported Playlist Hall of Fame, where I look back at some of the earliest episodes on this series and talk about the games to a fresh new audience because I consider them to be some of the best arcade games ever made. If you can't tell already, we're playing the Cliffhanger Edward Randy, released in 1990 by Data East. This game is just pure action-packed beat-em-up goodness with a little bit of a hack-and-slash flair. It is action-packed from start to finish, and it has some fun sprite scaling elements as well, which you'll see in a moment. We're going to drift this boat into a new canal, and all these buildings are going to scale past us. The minute you put quarters into this game and hit start, the intensity is not going to let up until you see the credits scroll. It is going at a 10 out of 10 speed the entire time, and you're absolutely going to love it. When Data East was on their A game, they made some of the best arcade games ever made, and Data East was on their A+ game when they made the Cliffhanger Edward Randy. It is such an easy game to pick up and play. It's constantly showing you something new to do, and you just love it the entire time. But leave me a comment down below and tell me, have you ever played this game before? Have you heard about it? Or if you're hearing about it for the first time here, I would be curious as well. This game is just sheer spectacle. It's that over-the-top fun that you get out of something like Metal Slug or some of the IREM run-and-gun games as well. You're not going to be resting until you beat this game, but you're going to be loving every single second of it. And because of course Edward Randy here does have a whip and is basically a Costco brand Indiana Jones, you're going to be using that whip to do some platforming in this game as well, because we need to get off of this boat and up onto the train and continue our fight. This game has a lot of verticality, a lot of platforming, and it 100% works and is a ton of fun. I love being able to jump from the boat up onto this train and continue the fight along the way. And I would say, as far as arcade games are concerned, this one is actually relatively fair. It is not going to steal too many of your quarters. If you die, it's because you finally took enough damage. You're never going to get stun locked. It's just got everything you need. Incredible graphics, fun sprite scaling, and an absolute intensity in the action that just never quits. And I love this level in particular. You get your own vehicle, and not only can you fight on that vehicle, but you can start drifting it and getting it up on two wheels and use the literal car as a weapon itself. That's something you don't see very often in arcade games. And as these ships drop down, we jump over this ravine and go into a new area. This is just so good looking for 1990. Obviously Sega gets most of the credit when it comes to sprite scaling, and Taito could do a good job as well, but Data East isn't as much known for their technology. But here this just 100% works, as those clearly German soldiers come in and you can see their sprite scale back. I just love it. And again, like I said, you can use the car here to your advantage. You can literally grind your opponents into that rock wall, decimating them either in a vehicle or just as a human body, and in real life that would be a very unfun time indeed. But the reason I love the Cliffhanger Edward Randy so much is that no one ever really seems to talk about this game, and that is just an absolute disappointment. This is the type of game that should be on like the top 25 list of best arcade games of all time on every single list, but I never hear anyone mention it. Maybe just because I have some strange fascination with the game and I love it that much. Tell me down below, am I confusing this for being better than it really is, or am I just identifying a hidden gem that I think you guys should play? And again, if you have played this, leave your opinion down below. Maybe you like it as much as I do, or maybe you struggle with it a little bit. But again, just the boss fights in this game alone are so spectacular. They have huge health bars, and you need to figure out their weak spot in pretty much every single situation. You cannot grind this gigantic enemy mover tank into the wall. You need to whip the health bar down until it is defeated. All of the bosses in this game are as good and as fun as the rest of it as well. And you'll see here an even bigger truck comes up, tries to push us into the wall, and we clear the stage and end up going to the next stage where we're on this truck jumping around and fighting. Every single time you change stages, it gets even more intense and more fun, and you marry that together with an awesome soundtrack that just sells the kind of Indiana Jones vibe here, and you have what I would consider a special game. But speaking of soundtrack, go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds. I'll be back with more gameplay and review. The music just works to sell the intensity that you're clearly seeing on the screen at the same time, and that's why I love this game. It has absolutely everything going for it. It's got challenge, it's got amazing graphics, especially for 1990. It's got a fun soundtrack, it's got a ton of challenge and fun. There's nothing about this game that I can say I don't like whatsoever. And this stage right here, I love that it slows it down a little bit. We have to do some platforming because all of these girders are going to start falling in real time, and you don't want to fall off the screen because you are going to lose some of your life. And I do take a couple continues here, but again, this is the type of game that you could probably learn a 1cc on pretty quickly, because compared to pretty much every other arcade game of the generation, it is relatively, in my opinion, easy, but of course you can adjust the difficulty. But you add in all of the whip swings there in the platforming, these giant robot arms coming up, and again you just have this spectacle, the entire screen swaying back and forth, you trying to crawl up it before you end up falling to your death below, having to fight all of these different enemies as you go along. It just adds up to being such an incredible experience, and I'm still so surprised that this game has never been brought really to anything. Apparently the rumor is there was a Sega Saturn port in development by Ving, who brought a lot of awesome arcade games to the platform, but that never made it out. As we move into the next boss battle here again, I just love this. It's some sort of mech skeleton head with these tentacles coming out trying to electrocute you. You're not sure why it's here. The story doesn't really give you any context as to why you're fighting it, but it looks absolutely incredible. Those gigantic teeth, those eyeballs, what looks like a third eye coming out of the forehead. All of the boss design in this game is just spectacular. All of the sprite work, the 2D backgrounds, they look so good, especially considering this game released in 1990, because this was still the NES era at home basically, so seeing something like this in arcades would have been amazing. But I have not seen an arcade cabinet for this in a very long time. If you know where there is one, leave me a comment down below. And you'll see here as we get into the next area, we're now having a fight on biplanes and even triplanes. I don't think those actually exist. I've never seen one in real life. And you have to jump from one plane to the other to survive and not fall in the water without taking damage. It's just so much fun. That's what this game truly is. It's an action-packed romp through an Indiana Jones movie without the Indiana Jones character. And of course you know that they're not going to let that gigantic squid skull get away, because he did have arms as well, so you're going to have a secondary battle in front of this waterfall, and it is just so good. I've got big Metal Slug vibes from this game, even though the gameplay is slightly different, but that over-the-top boss battle feel is here, it's intact, and it is so incredibly good. And the best part is this game only lasts about 22 minutes, so if you don't have a ton of time to play some games, just throw on the Cliffhanger Edward Randy, start playing it, and you're going to realize just how good it is. And of course, we're not just going to have a fight on biplanes in the water, they're going to have to take off and fly into the sky, but having landed and flown in a seaplane before, I will say that you're not taking off from any water with wheels on the bottom of the plane. Small detail, but they could have gotten it right. And this sky battle to end the game basically is just the game putting everything together at once. All of the different characters you've seen, all of the different enemies, the platforming, the jumping, the hanging and using the whip to platform around, doing those really critical jumps to make sure you don't fall to your death. It just takes every mechanic and everything you've seen in the game and puts them all together for one last level that just basically feels like you're watching an action movie come to life. And the best arcade games do sometimes feel like that, a real film just come to life. And that's what the Cliffhanger Edward Randy does. It is a straight up 10 out of 10 in my opinion. It's a great game to look at, it's a great game to play, it's a great game to listen to, and again, Data East, when they were doing the right things, had some of the best soundtracks in arcade gaming in my opinion. So I'm going to give you one more 30-second sample, and I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about the game and why I consider it to be on the Unported Playlist Hall of Fame. But again, this is just so good. I love it, especially the music. So here's one last taste of that soundtrack, and I will be right back with a little bit more gameplay. I mean, amazing music, and we get one more amazing boss battle before we fight the big bad in the game. And we're all doing this on a biplane as all of these clouds and ground layer go past us. It just adds so much to the screen at once. The intensity is so wild. I absolutely love this game, and having this final battle on this jet right here is a fun time as well, with all the platforming and attacks at the same time. But take my word for it, if you trust anything I say on this channel, play the Cliffhanger Edward Randy, and if you've played it but it's been some years, it is time to play it again. It is just one of the best arcade games of its generation in my opinion, and the only wrong way to play it is to not play it in the first place. Data East, when they were doing the good developments, could do everything just as good as the Segas, the Taitos, and the Konamis of the world. So definitely check the game out. It takes 22 minutes to play. You're going to have an absolute blast or your money back, and considering these are virtual quarters, that guarantee is worth absolutely nothing. But this is the second game on Unported Playlist Hall of Fame. We got 7 more games coming up, so take some guesses down below as to what you think I might show. But Edward here's made someone a little bit mad, and we're going to end the video with him taking 5 across the eyes. Bye bye.